This is Jackson here,
And this is Ryan.
and we decided to do a little um, experiment because after talking for a while, we've realized something dastardly about Ryan's past, some dark secret of
Yeah.
his.
And once you find it out, it really paints the corners of the person that I am, and it helps you understand like why I've got such a like waning morality, I guess.
Right, because you've never really had like these moral like compass points of such defined like good and evil
Yeah.
to look to and model your behavior after. So his big sin and secret is that he'd never seen Star Wars, almost any Star Wars stuff before. Solo and one season of Mandalorian is
That's true, yeah. And that's actually probably the only reason that I'm still able to like function as a human in society at all. If I hadn't seen Solo, dude,
Solo.
I'd be lost.
Yeah, so we decided we have to rip off the Band-Aid and show it to him raw. Go in with as little expectations as possible, and except that's not true because we did decide to go over your expectations beforehand. But yeah, what do you want to say anything about? Well, I guess the point is that we watched the first Star Wars movie just like 10 minutes ago. We finished it, and his first time seeing it, my like 20th time seeing it probably. I'm a big fan and love it all, and I wanted to introduce it to my friend who hasn't experienced it before. So that was the goal here, and we've barely talked about it at all. So I'm just anxious and curious to hear his thoughts.
And I should say that two things. One, me being willing to watch Star Wars with you, it says that I trust you to a certain degree.
Yeah.
Because it's not like I watched Solo, but it's not like I had any interest in watching Star Wars ever. I could have happily gone the rest of my life, maybe ignorantly, but blissfully, like, and not have watched any other Star Wars properties. And the only reason I watched Solo, by the way, was because it wasn't because I was like, well, what's the Star Wars thing all about? Actually, I'm a little curious. No, it's because Movie Pass was out at the time.
Oh yeah.
So I was just seeing literally every movie in theater, and just a random Star Wars movie happened to be in theaters, and it was Solo.
I mean, that's about as good a reason as any to see Solo.
Mm-hmm.
It's I fell asleep the first time I watched it, and I care about this stuff a lot, and it was just like, oh god.
Yeah,
okay.
it's weird that like the Solo movie was my first impression of Han Solo too.
Yeah,
It does seem like obviously I don't remember too much from the Solo movie because one, it was like a free movie pass movie, and two, it's just a Star Wars. So like I said, I wasn't like that interested. I was just there because I like going to the movies, like, and I like the movie ambiance. But yeah, I remember like I don't know, Solo was not. He was a little more like brash in this movie than he was.
Yeah.
Like, maybe like he matures with age, but
He's gained some confidence now.
yeah, he's like I don't want to like. It's like scary saying anything about Star Wars characters because like there's like a ravenous fan base like waiting to like pick apart every single word. But
share your truth. I won't have any judgment for complaints or
yeah, probably like jumping in at weird spots. But just like thinking about the Solo character, since he came up naturally first, I like don't like him that much. And I know, and I can tell the movie like kind of frames him to be like he's a cool dude.
He's cool. He's super cool.
But it's like not that I dislike him. I just like he kind of was just there like mumbling and bumbling around to me. Like no, that's the appeal to you.
Yeah.
It's like that's just like me. I know. Here.
I would have just been like, hey, what the heck is all this crazy stuff?
Yeah. Well, honestly, Luke kind of feels that way too.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
He's like, it gets to the point where it's like, oh, like I get that he did tag along, but also it feels like him tagging along in a way is like, I don't know. It feels like he knows he's trying to get himself killed or something. Yeah. Like, what are you doing here, Luke?
I mean, it's funny you'd say that because I think in the first script or like early drafts, like there wasn't a separate character of Luke and Han Solo. They were kind of like combined as one person.
I can totally see that, dude.
Yeah,
I can
yeah.
totally see it. They do. I mean, it seems like there's maybe like a foundational bromance there too. Like, I feel like the first movie towards the end, it was like everyone's earned their relationships with each other at this
Yeah.
moment, which may not. I feel like that didn't necessarily ring true. Like,
Yeah, yeah. It's hard to like separate like what I'm like, these are my friends. And of course they're friends with each other because they love each other. But it's like, you're right. I mean, yeah. I don't know, Luke and Han blew up the TIE fighters together and they had their bonding there. I mean, it is like pretty fast paced at the end where they're just
Yeah.
like, yay, we're hugging.
and then like Leia's also like goes super cold to warm.
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Also, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I guess like everyone should be happy with each other at this point. So any of the like petty tiny stuff, I guess, doesn't matter. But
Yeah,
kind of funny.
I do agree with you. Yeah.
I also want to know, like how well he got set up after that. Is that expanded upon in this?
Not necessarily in the movies. I mean, maybe in like some books and stuff, they say how much money he gets.
He's gonna pay back Jabba the Hutt.
No, that was his goal. Yeah.
Who isn't in this? He's not a character you actually see in this movie.
No.
He's a character I know what he looks like.
Yeah.
So I know he comes up later.
It's he does. But it's interesting. There's like a deleted scene in this where, like right before they get on the ship, it's pretty much like a repeat of the scene with Greedo, but it's just like Jabba the Hutt there instead, and he's like, hey, like, oh, and also Boba Fett in the background.
Wait, who's Greedo? Is Greedo the one that is like pointing the gun at
the
him?
green guy who's like,
I liked his like accent.
Yeah, his voice was cool. Erodian is race, if you wanted to know.
Oh, okay.
He's Erodian.
Because their planet has eroded so much over time, and they just sort of live in this eroded planet.
A-Rodian is what I said.
Okay, not what I heard.
Well, sorry. But in the original, like, deleted scene, Jabba the Hutt is just a dude, just like a human. Like
He's just some guy.
Yeah.
Is he like, I'm Jabba the Hutt? And
yeah,
it's like,
pretty much. I think he's like an Australian, like, big, like, sturdy Australian guy. Like, you owe me money.
I don't know what the aliens, like, is the alien version Australian sounding too?
No.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But I mean, we'll leave that. But in the special editions, he includes that deleted scene and CGI's over what Jabba the Hutt actually looks like when he appears. I mean, sort of. It looks terrible, though. Yeah.
Well, speaking of characters that, like, we don't see, can I tell you the one that I said, like, I told you already, there's something that it did not meet my expectation. I was, like, waiting for it the whole movie.
Yeah.
And it was Yoda.
Yeah, no Yoda.
Who I thought was just, like, such a Star Wars staple that he would immediately be in the movie and, like, be there right away with them. And I'm like, it got towards the end of the movie when they're like doing the Death Star stuff, and I was like, they're not going anywhere else. This is like, this is the third act. Like, Yoda's not popping in this movie.
No,
that's so weird to me. Dude.
Yeah.
That's very strange.
That is. I was thinking about that too, because his face is all over the place and super recognizable.
He has to be in the second one then, right?
I don't know.
Oh my God.
I guess I'm not allowed to say. Because, we're gonna, at least my goal for this is to expose him in a way that is like when the stuff was coming out. As much as possible. Obviously, big, like, cultural spoilers.
I know a few things.
Yeah, but as much as we can, we're gonna try and unveil it the way that Star Wars media was unveiled. Even though, I didn't have that authentic experience. I wasn't alive when they came out, but at least my parents did show me the original 3 before they let me watch.
Are your parents like big Star Wars fans?
Not like huge. They like it though, and I think they knew that I would like it. Like when I was 5, or I think that's when I watched them the first time. They probably didn't reckon I would care about it as much as I do. But yeah, so it's their fault. But before, he was talking about impressions before watching the movie. We thought it would be funny to like write down characters that he knew about from just cultural osmosis, and like to, as well as he could, try and write down like what he thinks a plot summary of the first Star Wars movie. That's it's just called Star Wars. What his thoughts on what it would be were?
Yeah, it's actually really funny too. Obi-Wan Kenobi, obviously a huge part of the movie.
Yeah,
I like completely. He doesn't register as strongly as a Star Wars character in my head, so I didn't even like think about him. I don't know if he doesn't have the star power like some of the other characters do. I guess.
I don't know, Sir Alec Guinness playing.
I mean,
right.
I like the character a lot in the movie. Okay, I love Obi-Wan Kenobi.
All right,
I love him. Okay, this is what I wrote, and this is meant to be like this is a loose plot synopsis of what not just the first movie is. I sort of went like series.
Okay.
The first trilogy, I guess. Is what I was sort of looking at. In a galaxy far away, and yet in a galaxy much like our own, Luke Skywalker, a trailer trash equivalent space orphan. I kind of got that right.
That's pretty correct, yeah.
Has just come of age, meaning he's completed his foundational educational training. But that education is basically to work in the mines or to just build spaceships on his planet, which also is kind of, I mean...
Pretty close, work on a farm.
Farm, yeah. He aspires for more, though, and ultimately ends up getting recruited into the space army by Han Solo.
In a way.
Yeah, a spaceship captain... and space military recruiter. While aboard fighting a war for which he does not know the cause of, Luke Skywalker learns that Han Solo is a Jedi.
Oh, no way.
And so is his mentor, Yoda, a little green alien from a near extinct race. And being a Jedi means you represent the totality of good in the universe, aka the light force.
Okay.
And Luke further learns that there are beings out there that represent the totality of evil in the universe. That's the dark side.
Okay.
And they are known as the Sith.
Yep.
And most Sithly of all is Darth Vader, who just happens to be Luke's father, but that's the plot twist that we won't learn until later.
Yeah, not in this one.
In the meantime, Luke and Han Solo and Yoda have to make nice with the leader of space, Emperor Palpatine.
Who is that?
Yeah. And his daughter, Princess Leia, who Luke later kisses despite her being his sister.
Well, not all of that is established in this one, but some of those things will unfold.
Yeah.
And she did kiss him in this one, I guess.
There was
on
some cheek pecks. Yeah, it was nothing too red flag raising, I think, for siblings yet.
Yeah,
I don't know the extent of the kiss later. I've never seen it, so.
Well, I mean, we'll have to just find out about that.
Yeah, I don't know how long they hold it. I don't know if there's like tongue or what kind of lip locking that they find themselves in.
I don't know, but he definitely wants to date her though in this one.
It's funny that is almost his call to action, just finding her.
Yeah,
hot.
She's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's awesome to hear. Because, no Palpatine. Well, he's referenced, I guess. They say the Emperor and stuff.
It was Palpatine actually said, though? Or did that come later? Okay,
I don't think so.
I was listening for certain character names, and that's one I didn't hear. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess he's not. I thought he would be introduced as sort of like an overarching villain immediately.
Yeah, more looming in the background type. But I don't think they say his name in this one at all. And it's interesting how interesting to me how Grand Moff Tarkin, Peter Cushing's character, is the politician that keeps Vader. And Leia even says it I should have known you had Vader's leash or something. And it's this guy will just go crazy and kill everybody unless he has somebody who's reining him in.
I thought that was I had obviously misconceptions about Vader just from him being one of the symbols of Star Wars essentially. Because one, I did not think he would have anyone sort of hovering over his shoulder or anything like that. I thought he just had complete free reign from I assumed like Emperor Palpatine, and then like Vader's his little buddy. They're good friends, and he just lets Vader go try to win his war for him or whatever.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and that's somewhat true.
I just didn't realize there'd be like other people like factoring into that equation.
I think it's cool. Like, it's like just a little extra layer of like nuance to it, where like I think it would work fine if Vader was just like in charge of the Death Star or whatever. Like, that wouldn't be that weird or crazy, but I think it's cool that he's not. He's like referred to as like an attack dog and stuff.
Honestly, dude, I like never thought Darth Vader was that cool, but he's pretty cool.
He's
honestly.
pretty sweet.
Yeah, I feel like him being a symbol of Star Wars kind of does him like a disservice. If you don't know like the details of him, I guess.
I feel like, yeah, just like the amount of like bumper stickers you see of him kind of takes away the mystique and the cool factor.
And like I guess I've seen like so many action figures of him. Yeah. I've just seen him like plastered everywhere.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's such an awesome design. Like, I feel like it's understandable why that's like so iconic. It's just like a crazy cool helmet and stuff. But when you try and be like, oh, how do they introduce him in the movie? Like, this is like the first time I'm seeing Darth Vader. Like, holy shit, he's crazy.
Yeah, you can tell too that he kind of does just, I guess like they said, he's embraced the dark side. Because one of the first things that I noticed, like when you see him, because I was paying special attention when Vader was introduced, which obviously it's right in the beginning too.
Yeah, yeah.
But right when he comes on that ship, he like just looks down at the dirty work of like the stormtroopers that came before him, like all the people they just like shot. I don't know. He's interesting.
Yeah, he's just like, okay. And then the first thing he actually does is like snap a guy's neck and throw him across the room. Captain Antilles, no relation to Luke's friend Wedge Antilles, by the way, which you might have thought like, oh, it's a fictional universe, like people with the same last name, probably like related to each other, but no, they just both have the last name Antilles.
Wow, that's commitment to realism.
Yeah,
like that's just there's people with everyone's last name. Basically.
I know,
it's crazy.
But yeah, I mean, I guess we don't have to go like scene by scene or anything, but I would love to, just hear your impressions on things as they happen. I mean, we were talking about the very beginning, pretty much after the crawl. I mean, I love like it just goes from the stars down to the planet, and then the ships come in like all in one shot. The music, I mean, holy mackerel!
The music is really good, although it's a weird effect, I think, because I've like I watched it today after having been like side exposed to all the music and stuff before. Is that I felt like I was at an amusement park for like the first 15-20 minutes while I was watching this, and not in a bad way, but just because like, again, all the imagery of Star Wars is so like, just like, I don't know, it's been like super corporatized, I guess. It's kind of like the emblematic problem of it. But so like I don't see it necessarily even like, obviously none of us can see it completely fresh without any like understanding of what Star Wars was before. But like a lot of it is almost like, oh, okay, I guess I recognize that from like commercials or like jingles or like advertisements.
I know.
More so than from like the actual material of it. Like I told you, like the beginning of the movie, I was having like an out of body experience a little bit, just because like it felt so surreal that I was watching Star Wars and it was nothing like I expected it so far. Because it starts with like you basically follow R2-D2 and C-3PO or 3CPO?
C-3PO.
C-3PO and C-3PO.
They're like the main POV characters for a good while at the beginning.
They're fun. I do like them a lot.
Yeah, they're really funny. Like, that's always something I appreciate on watching it again, is how funny the whole movie is. Like, I feel like, to me, Han Solo's really funny. C-3PO and R2-D2 are funny. Little like embarrassing moments that happen are. I mean, it just feels like real people like doing
Luke is
this
funny.
Stuff. Yeah, Luke is funny.
Luke is funny, and then it like why is our kid brother here? Wait,
yeah.
Like,
what's that light doing? Like, what's that?
He's like, shouldn't we do this? Like, I know what I'm doing.
Yeah,
Luke,
yeah.
thank you.
I know. Obi-Wan is funny, like just acting kind of like a crazy old guy who doesn't care about like too much anymore. I mean, he cares about like helping the galaxy and stuff, but I think he's like, I know I'm gonna die, so I'm just gonna be like, okay, here's the lightsaber. Like, there's not that much time for me to do stuff.
And okay, just like, I guess the fans at the time were also probably left like shrouded in the mystery of it, but like, did Obi-Wan teleport, or was that supposed to be him dying?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess people would. It is supposed to be him dying.
Is that what we're supposed to think?
Yeah.
He like poofs away though.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess it's not a spoiler when Jedis die; their bodies just disappear and their clothes stay behind.
Oh, okay. So, okay,
because it's supposed to be like he says during that fight, like, if you strike me down now, I'll become more powerful than you can imagine. And it's like, oh, if you're killed, then your spirit becomes like part of the living force. You know, so your consciousness is like in the ether.
So do Jedis not aim to kill other Jedis generally then? Because wouldn't that just make the Jedis more powerful? Like if he'd killed Vader in that situation, wouldn't Vader then be able to whisper into other people's minds?
I mean, this is getting into also like pretty niche, like how the Force works stuff, and
but to me, honestly, that's like the most interesting thing about this so far. Like I also love the explanation of the Force being like, oh, it's sort of an energy that extrudes like off every living thing.
Yes,
that's like super cool.
It like binds collective consciousness together somehow. Like I really love the way he explains it too, and like the way Alec Guinness is like delivering that is so cool too. It's just like, at least me, it's really hard to like separate how I feel about it when I'm 5 years old from now, even where it's like when you're 5, you really accept a lot, like without questioning it. So all these characters feel so believable to me because like when I was a little kid, like of course I believe even the aliens are believable. Like even the silly looking ones, I'm like not really thinking about it that much.
I remember I think I mentioned it, but like during I know the bar has like a famous name, but I forget.
The Mos Eisley Cantina.
Yeah, there we go. The Cantina. I think that's like what I remembered, not the rest of it, but
fair enough.
Like at all the aliens that they were really proud of their alien costumes there. They kept cutting to them over and over again. Every single like moment in there was just like a montage of the costumes, but they like very funnily look like something people just got at Party City and like threw on that day and didn't make too many modifications to for some of them. Like there's like werewolves and stuff.
Yeah. There's the werewolf guy. There's a guy who's like in a very like classic looking spacesuit, like astronaut costume. But I think a lot of the designs are really cool. The red devil guy with the horns, like, okay, maybe that's just like a devil guy, but I like that guy. Yeah. The Biffs, especially the band, the guys in the band, they look great.
They met my expectations of the little alien guys. So I was pretty satisfied with them.
I think the Tusk guy who like bothers Luke at the bar looks pretty good.
Wow, you do know them all, huh? I've seen this movie probably.
The guy's like named like Pondo Bamba or something. I was gonna look up like.
Can we get the official fact check if that is Pondo Bamba?
I could be wrong about that. That I could be thinking of a different character.
That'd be like honestly pretty humiliating and annihilating way to you, dude.
I search Pondo Bamba and I'm just getting
Mambo number 5.
I think these are CPAP machines. Ponda.
Sounds like you're just like mispronouncing panda.
Ponda Baba. Okay,
Ponda
so I was
Bear.
pretty close. Ponda Bear.
Yeah.
Ponda Baba. I was pretty close.
That is pretty good, actually.
This guy.
Yeah.
Who's Aqualish is what his alien race is called.
Oh wow.
Anyway, that guy, Ponda Baba, he looks pretty cool.
That scene, is that the only like cantina scene that we get? In like at least this original trilogy?
Yeah.
That's interesting because isn't there like I feel like I know something about like a conflict where it's like who shot first? Was it like Han Solo, or is it that other guy?
Yeah, yeah.
It's that scene.
That's the whole like huge controversy that like people online talk about all the time.
I don't understand why it'd be a controversy, and also I feel like it's like pretty clear what happened.
Yes, well, that's the thing. So telling you about the special editions, the most controversial edit that was made was having it be in like self-defense. So like George Lucas was concerned, like, oh, he just murders this guy in cold blood. Like, our kid's gonna think he's like scary or something. Or like not a good role model. I don't know. So in the special edition, and this part has been edited over like multiple times, but the original way that he changed it, and the original thing that sparked the controversy, is having Greedo like fire from his gun real quick, have a freeze frame of Han Solo like literally digitally alter it so his neck like moves to the side and dodges the blast, and then he shoots him. So it's like, oh, he didn't just murder this guy. He was actually like, it was in self-defense. Like,
doesn't that feel like unnecessary justification when Greedo is his name?
Greedo.
When Greedo was already pointing a weapon.
Yeah, he's definitely gonna kill him there. Yeah. So,
and he's also like, I've been waiting to do this. Like,
yeah,
things you say right before you murder someone.
Han says, "Over my dead body." He literally says, "That's the idea." So it's like, okay, well. He's gonna kill him for sure.
Funny. Weird. I wonder why they got so in their head about it.
I don't know. And he keeps changing it too. Literally this is modern Star Wars stuff, but when it went to Disney Plus and he's like passing it off to Disney, he's like, okay, one more change. At least this is what I've heard, that it was George Lucas's idea to make this change. Makes no sense to me. Right as Greedo's dying, he goes, "McClunky." And then hits the table.
Why?
I don't know. But he's just like obsessed with that little interaction and has changed it.
That's really funny, dude.
Yeah.
Oh man, I'm glad I know that now.
Really weird.
That's like feels like a moment of Star Wars that is built up to be something much bigger than it is.
Yeah. It's just like this random thing that happens, but I guess ends up being a big deal in the movies. Like Han Solo has a bounty on his head from Jabba the Hutt. Like,
oh yeah, the bounty hunter dude didn't show up either. What is his
Boba
name?
Fett.
Boba Fett.
Yeah.
Boba
No,
Fett
he's not. He's in that deleted scene where Jabba the Hutt talks to Han Solo, but
oh really?
Just in the background, like
wow.
unnamed. And we'll get into like I think the merchandise and stuff in a future episode, but that's kind of that. Well, I don't want to spoil too much, but that's one of the ways that he was introduced to the public was a toy before even the second movie comes out that he is like actually in. Well, I don't want to say too much.
Okay, that is interesting though. Okay.
Yeah. Anything else you want to say about Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru? The whole beginning on Tatooine before they leave.
Yeah, I don't feel like I caught too much of what their deal is. The uncle and it's his uncle and aunt.
Yeah.
That he just like wanted to keep Luke there farming, and we didn't get too much information about their parents or his parents either, right? Just that like, do we know what happened to his mom?
No, they don't mention his mom at all.
And his dad is, his dad is dead.
Yeah.
Was Obi-Wan lying about that to Luke also, by the way, or does Obi-Wan not know that it's his father?
I don't want to say.
Spoiler territory?
I know you know that it's his father. I mean, how could anybody like not know that at this point? But there are like some nuances to it that about that specifically.
It did like season my interpretation of him though, because I was like, it made me a little more dubious of him maybe than I should have been initially. I was like, oh, he's not telling Luke everything, maybe. Yeah,
but I mean, I think I think that's true about a lot of things that he does.
Mm-hmm.
He tells him very like specific information and omits other things, and he's like as soon as he's done explaining the Force to him and stuff, he's like, hey, like come with me with this message on Alderaan, like this Princess Leia person Apparently, I know who that is because she knows who I am. We have some sort of like previously established relationship, whether or not she's heard of me or she literally says you fought with my father in the Clone Wars, so like they know each other somehow. And also when he like goes off by himself on the Death Star, he's like, I'm gonna go turn off the like tractor beam by myself. Don't come with me. Wait here in the room. I kind of interpret that to be like he knows that he's gonna run into Darth Vader and probably die. But if like Luke and Han came with him, like Darth Vader would just kill them easily.
Well, yeah, okay. This is the other interesting about Jedi's to me. I feel like I don't yet understand the extent of their powers. It seems like they have like a few different individual power sets, and I wasn't sure if there was like anything prophetic associated with being a Jedi. Like I don't know. Like, is that a thing? Like, is he able to gleam into at least, like, I don't know, destiny, fate?
Yeah, like a sense of. I don't think they can literally see the future. Some have in the extended universe and stuff, and I mean, no spoilers for the other ones, but at least in this one, he says like, oh, like you can sort of premonice or have feelings about like what's going to come in the future. So I'm assuming like he knows, like whether or not he knows specifically how it's going to happen or not. He's like, I'm probably going to die on this mission to go like deliver these plans to Alderaan or whatever.
I want to ask, but I feel like you're not going to tell me the answer. I feel like he is going to come back, but I could also see him potentially not coming back. But if he doesn't come back, actually, I was going to say it's weird if he doesn't come back because he's such a popular character, but maybe it makes sense if he doesn't come back because he wasn't that popular in the rankings of like Star Wars characters in my head. Maybe that's because he doesn't show up too much afterwards. I know. Well, there's prequels too, I guess. So.
Yeah.
So I assume he is in at least some of those.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, I don't want to spoil whether or not he comes back, but I mean, he's already talking to Luke after he died.
Yeah.
So yeah, that back to what we were talking about a while ago. At least my understanding of it, I'm sure some people will be like, that's not how it works. That in this book or whatever, it says this. But I think that like the light side Jedis, without spoiling too much, at least Obi-Wan specifically, is so connected with like the light side of the Force and like the conscious collectiveness life aspect of all of it, the good things about the Force, that like his consciousness goes into the Force when he dies. When you were asking about like what would happen to Darth Vader,
he goes to hell.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think like he's closed himself off to the good side of the Force like so much that his spirit would not like connect back to the earth or something if he died. At least that's what I understand it to be. And he's doing stuff like the Force choke, like, hey, that's a big no-no for good guy Jedis to do.
Is there like a list of rules they have to follow if you want to be like a good Jedi versus a Sith?
I mean, probably there is probably literally a list of rules somewhere in some piece of media.
And you don't know it? You don't know it by heart?
I mean,
the 5 sects of being a Jedi?
I know some of them, okay? I know some of it. But you can, like, that's just the thing about Star Wars that I can't even, like, turn off in my brain is, like, the video gamifying of it all. And, like, when you're playing a Star Wars video game, there's literally, like, light side abilities and dark side abilities.
Yeah.
So, like, those, you can kind of be like, okay, like, the Jedis have, like, Force heal, and the Sith have, like, Force lightning and choke. Well, I shouldn't spoil the lightning, but...
Yeah, also, well, I think I do know about that just from seeing artwork on game covers, actually.
Yeah. The Force Unleashed game.
Also, what is the first Star Wars game that comes out? Like, is there one based directly off this film, or does it take a while for like to pick up steam enough to get a game?
To my memory, it takes a little bit, and the first ones that I know of, I think maybe there's like an arcade game that's like an X-Wing fighter arcade game, and then the first games, I think, are like the Atari 2600
I want to play
games. Yeah, me too, and I think maybe I played one of them a while ago, but we should play them and talk about them because they're probably like super quick, like little games.
I want to do them also before like moving on to whatever film comes after that, because that is an interesting thing you mentioned, the way that like everything can get like sort of jumbled up about like what is game lore, what is like a game Jedi, what versus like what is the Jedi in the books or the movies or whatever. So it'd be interesting to see like I guess reverse engineering the influence.
Yeah, and it's almost frustrating now with Disney how tight the quality control is, where like all the rules are the same across like all media, and they have like people checking that and everything. But like early on, you know, there's not nearly as much like oversight. Even George Lucas like hasn't thought about all of these things I mean, he's obviously thought about them a lot, but like to a certain extent, like what all the rules are and what comes later, like. But I'm pretty sure that those Atari games didn't come out until after the second and third movies were already released, and they put like all three of them out at the same time.
Gotcha, and they're probably not super Star Wars related. I'm guessing they just like maybe have the Star Wars label slapped on to them. By the way, before I forget, I know I mentioned to you that like there's a couple of shots in there in this film that like I've seen versions of it and I didn't even realize they've been referencing Star Wars. And obviously there are other ones I'm like, okay, I know that I've known my whole life that's a Star Wars reference, whatever. But one that I did not is like I've seen it all the time, like bad guys in their spaceships sort of like flipping around in like black space just like towards the end or whatever, and like that happened to Vader, and it almost was like comical to me. Because I've seen it played up like in the for the comedy so many times. Like it's just so funny.
But it's a little funny even in the way they play it in the movie, because he is just spinning, like the cockpit spinning.
I know the double I don't know if they're the first to do it, but like the double moon thing on a planet being like a spectacle shot is certainly a thing that happened. I feel like it happens in Dune even also, actually.
I think so.
I don't know if it's homaging it or actually didn't the guy who wrote Dune say Star Wars ripped off Dune?
Yeah, it probably, I mean, I'm sure it was like inspired with some things or whatever. It's very influenced by like a lot of things. Like you know, some of this I've like read and some is my own interpretation. So like if I'm not being like 100% accurate about what George Lucas's influences were, then I apologize. But I know for a fact that like the big influences are like the Flash Gordon like old serials in like the 40s and 50s when they were playing movies. Like before the movie you have like one or two like short serials that play and like episodic things that like always end on a cliffhanger, and it's like come back next week to see the next one. Like that structure I feel like is captured so well in this movie, where it's like a series of pretty isolated like scenes one after the other that do have like some linking thing, but so many moments in there I'm thinking like, yeah, this would be like the end of an episode or whatever, which like I feel like you could appreciate in the way where if that was like a 30-part like backup story in a comic book or something, you could see like each like 2 or 3 page little story going on.
Yeah, it's funny to me because sort of in a similar vein, like watching it, to me it felt like almost a little bit like a Dungeons and Dragons adventure, like the way they're broken up through like sessions and those plot beats. And they are sort of just like sort of a random group that gets together. So also like basically I was like, oh, they're like a space Dungeons and Dragons group, just like getting into and out of shenanigans and whatnot. But yeah, I actually did really like it. Made the movie feel like pretty quick too.
Yeah.
Which is nice.
I know, it's like I guess technically over 2 hours long, but it goes pretty fast, I feel like.
And like I said, I kind of expected like so much more to be put in there, just because I have knowledge of like a bunch of Star Wars stuff that isn't all in this movie.
Yeah.
So I kept being like, how are they gonna fit like knocking over like the giant walking droid thingy into this? They're like, when are they gonna like? There was one moment where the two robots were like, we're cold, and I was like, oh, like the scene where like they cut open the things or whatever and like get inside. Are they gonna do that here? Like just all this random. Then I'm like, okay, I guess I have no clue what pieces are from what movie.
That's really funny. That, I mean, it makes a lot of sense though. Like, yeah, just all be conflated into a Star Wars blob.
Anytime there's like a buzzword of a thing, I'm like, they're doing it.
Yeah,
we're doing it. Okay, and then it's just like, nah.
No.
That's why I wasn't sure if the like who shot first fight thing was that actual moment or not.
Right.
So I was like, oh, I guess it could potentially still be coming later. Because I also in my head I associated that moment with the moment where the dude gets frozen in like I don't know what he gets frozen in. But I know the dude gets frozen.
Yeah, I don't want to say too much about that either.
Yeah,
but
so it's just
that
like a
is
mess.
funny though.
It's just a big mess.
We'll get it sorted out for you. The one thing I guess I don't have confirmation on it, and if he could easily like lie in interviews, but I do think that he already knew that Darth Vader was going to be Luke's dad from the beginning.
I could see,
like, because I guess like Vader is like father in like German, not like literally, but sounds like it. And
well, you may not want to tell me this, but does that reveal happen in the next film, or do they save that for like the trilogy end? Like
it's in the next one.
Oh, okay.
I mean, yeah. But
so I assume he did have it planned out then. I don't know. Did you think they were gonna make more Star Wars after this one, or
I don't know. I mean, I feel like most people thought that it was maybe gonna flop and be like too weird and like random for people, like too silly or something.
Right? Yeah. Can you imagine a world without Star Wars?
No, literally no. Yeah, but I think he definitely had more like story planned, because the original script has like a bunch of stuff happening after that. Some of that comes up in the next movies and stuff, and lots of little ideas and things that he didn't use in this movie come up in the next ones. But that thing about like father, and then also I think the other clue is when Obi-Wan is telling him about his dad, and he's like, he was like the greatest star pilot that there ever was, and then at the end Darth Vader's like, let me get in my ship and take care of business, like personally and stuff.
And did he take care of business?
He killed a lot of guys.
Yes, sure.
I mean, the Death Star did get blown up, but you know, you could even play that into like, well, that's like his hubris, where he's like, I've realized that this guy that I'm pursuing has the Force, like, or has a connection to the Force. I've killed all these other like losers. Like, I gotta get this guy. What's this guy all about? So he like gets distracted and forgets what he's doing there. You know?
Yeah, I could see it. Honestly, I didn't have I didn't have like my finger on the pulse of what Vader's personality was even.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't make any facial expressions or anything. So.
Well, that's true, but I guess I can sort of infer sometimes from the way he speaks and yells and like uses the Force on people, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I told you it was weird watching because it was like the most I've ever heard Darth Vader speak. Like again, I thought he was like a character that sort of just like, I thought he literally was sort of like a Jason in Friday the 13th type, where he shows up and he like breathes scarily and he walks towards you and like uses the Force and stuff, but you don't really have a dialogue with him.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see why. Like, yeah.
But then he's like British or something. Like,
yeah, it's James Earl Jones doing the voice. And what's the guy? Prowse, David Prowse or something in the actual body. So
it's
all
two
like
different
dubbed
actors?
over.
Oh, interesting.
And I feel like if the voice was any like sillier than it is, it would like not work at all. But I think he sounds cool enough that it's like, oh, he's still intimidating even though he's like talking a lot and stuff.
Yeah, it just like it's so alarming at first hearing him like string together a sentence when I thought he was gonna be a person that was gonna be just saying things like kill them.
Yeah,
like, you know?
yeah. For sure. I mean, it totally could have been like that too. Like,
well, I this is why I'm saying I think Vader's cooler than I like would give him credit for. I like the personality like that is associated with him. I like how he's kind of like just like a bitter, like sassy dude in a sense. Like,
Yeah, yeah. You get like a little bit of his pride and ambition and stuff, and like, yeah, he's like gets angry and stuff. Yeah, I like that he's not just fully like stoic, emotionless guy.
I feel like the best Vader moment in the movie for me is when they're at like their little council meeting or whatever, and it's the dude who's like, "Your little force sorcery doesn't matter."
Yeah.
He immediately starts choking him with it. Which is it? What is the? Is there a like explanation for exactly what they're doing with the force there? Is it contracting their windpipe, or is it?
It's a good question. I mean, I feel like with the force you could like shut off somebody's lungs or like just tighten their windpipe.
Yeah, well, I just noticed the
know.
guy was like seemed to be like his neck sort of tilted a little bit,
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the side of his shoulder. Like, I don't know. I was trying to figure out what Vader was doing there.
I mean, not to spoil too much, but in like future depictions in like cartoons and whatever, usually people are like lifted by the neck when they're being like force choked.
Interesting.
So that I assume it's happening in the neck.
Why can't I just force stop your heart?
It's a good point. I guess probably some people could do that.
You just need like the strength to do it.
Yeah, I guess, but again, that's another like video gamification of the force where it's like, oh, is he a high enough level to like do this ability?
Yeah.
It's not really supposed to work like that, but it also does a little bit. Like some people are more powerful than others, but like it's more just open your mind, and if you believe that you can do this thing, then you probably can. Yeah,
that's cool. I like that a lot. I really do like that. And if it is truly like tapping into the power of collective consciousness, I don't know if they expand on that later, but like that in and of itself is a really cool concept.
A little bit, and I mean, I can certainly think of one example in the sequel movies that's really stupid that tries to
oh no,
expand on that, but well, maybe we'll eventually get to those ones. But yeah, they go into it more for sure. I mean, I don't want to say too much, but like you obviously know, like Yoda's coming. Soon.
Oh, Yoda's coming.
Yeah,
Yoda's coming, baby. I can't wait.
Oh,
I'm gonna be a Yoda stan from day one.
I think you will be. I love the way Yoda is introduced, and like the way he's depicted for the first time is so good.
I love what I know of Yoda already. Like I'm not as neutral on Yoda, as I am anything else Star Wars. Probably because I watched The Mandalorian. I like Grogu. Yoda.
Yeah.
So I really want to see just Yoda.
Yeah, regular Yoda.
Who I assume is not similar to Baby Yoda though.
No, not really.
Yeah, I assume he'll be a little less babyish.
Yeah, he's older for sure. Yeah. He's definitely older. What were your impressions about like the acting, or I guess you mentioned it before, but why was Han Solo like not doing it for you?
Honestly, okay, this is where like I'm a little nervous to even let it be known, but because I don't know what like the general consensus is, but to me, that movie wasn't very well acted. No, like it didn't seem like many of the actors or actresses were at the top of their game at the moment, and for a lot of the moments, it seems like they may have been saying a line that they were just told to say at that moment, and they didn't necessarily know how it like tied back into the plot or like why they were saying it. Luke, I think, is especially bad at certain moments. And then I think Solo's bad, like a lot of the moments too. But also it surprised me. Princess Leia, I thought, like, they just felt. I don't know if she got like dubbed over herself at certain points, but like it just felt weirdly disconnected from what was actually happening. So it like felt like I knew they recorded it in another room or after the fact for some of the lines. Yeah. So they weren't actually doing any of the action or had any of the intensity that would like be associated with it in the moment, you know?
Yeah, That is very fair, and that is true that a lot of her lines are like dubbed over, and a lot of other people's too. Like there
Yeah.
was just a lot of that in general in this. That's interesting. I feel like the only thing that people would be like, "Oh my goodness," is saying that Harrison Ford isn't doing a good job. Han Solo.
Yeah, I like him a lot
Yeah.
as an actor,
Well,
but it's weird. Maybe I don't know.
it's fair. I'm not,
Oh,
saying that you're wrong or anything. I just think I personally disagree. I think he is is awesome in this movie, and like
Yeah.
I love the way he delivers his lines and who his character is. But that's interesting to
I don't.
hear.
I'm sort of comparing it in my head because another movie that I hadn't seen that I was like made to watch recently was Jurassic Park. I hadn't seen that in forever, or I had never seen it. And I watched it, and I was like, I thought some of the dialogue and stuff would be dated or not, but I was like, oh, okay, it was pretty good in regards to like the writing. And then I thought like maybe something similar would happen with this, but to me, the writing of this definitely not that it's bad necessarily, but at least felt much more dated. Like it hasn't aged as well. I think.
Yeah,
Probably because it's like sci-fi, and so
there's a lot of stuff that sounds silly like by itself. I feel like, and even in context of the movie. I guess it definitely comes from like my 5-year-old brain like not questioning any of it, but it all to me is like, yeah, of course, like that's what this is. That's how they say it.
I guess it's like partly weird for me though at the times because like they will like say a generic action line or something or like a very generic film line, and I'll be like, is that generic or is it from this? Like
Yeah,
that distinction's difficult, and I'm polluted at this point of like I don't know how many people have tried to emulate Star Wars, probably a ton.
yeah,
Many
a
aspects
lot.
of it, and probably have like diluted it weirdly throughout the years. So some stuff is just like, oh, I've seen like the bastardization of this idea, I guess. But
I feel like it's not like the first thing to do it, but I think it probably is like marker that kind of made all of these tropes be so popular.
yeah,
And yeah, like they keep saying stuff like "this is where the fun begins," and I got a bad feeling about
yeah,
this, and that stuff is so like to me associated with Star Wars. To a lot of people, I think,
Yeah.
where they're like, "I've got a bad feeling about this." That's like a classic Star Wars line. Is it the first thing that where someone ever said that? Probably not, but
yeah. And maybe it's just that like I've only seen the movie this one time, and we literally just watched it. But it's like also I feel like the movie is made up more of those bits of dialogue than like character stuff or like any relationship like talk necessarily.
yeah,
I don't know. I like it's not a dialogue heavy movie. I feel at all like they do like talk and move around a bunch, but it's usually like objective based dialogue
yeah,
versus like
yeah.
let's like sit in it for a minute. But like also that's just like the style of the movie. I think like we said it was very fast paced, like scene to scene to scene.
I think that is like a big part of it is like trying to introduce so much new information like to an audience that you know when it's coming out like you would have to have a lot of stuff potentially explained to you outright because it's like there's not really ever been anything like this. Like yeah, there's been sci-fi movies before, but like the blend of like sci-fi and adventure, it feels so much just like something that was only like possible in like comic book form before that, and then
Mhm.
that so much like technology for miniatures and like the way that they shoot like robots and vehicles and stuff. Obviously he's taking influence from like 2001 Space Odyssey and like Star Trek the TV show and things like there's been stuff that have done things like that before, but like they use pretty revolutionary techniques for this that like I don't think that final sequence where the X-wings are going around on the Death Star and like
Mhm.
going into the trench and everything, like to my knowledge there's nothing like that before that.
Honestly, a lot of the stuff still looked pretty cool to me. I mean,
Yeah.
this is like obvious. I can tell when it's like a model or something, but it like does it sufficiently enough that it's not like Oh, I'm like thrown out of the movie here for a second, even though it is much older. The only thing that did that, like I mentioned, was the costumes in the, what is it called again?
The cantina, the Mos Eisley
What's
cantina.
the full? Yeah, that's right.
Mos Eisley's the spaceport, the city. That
Oh,
they're
okay.
in there.
Yeah. I'm sure I'll like come to know.
Yeah, you know, it'll be like you'll know the whole outer rim like the back of your hand.
Yeah.
As a fan, I feel like I justify a lot of the potential like shortcomings of the movie where like, oh, the dialogue, yes, it's pretty expository, and I agree with your point that like there isn't that much relationship building, and we kind of just get like a vibe of who each character is from the acting and the way that you get a little bit of Luke's motivations and all his feelings about stuff at the beginning, I feel like, but everybody else,
Yeah.
and like how Luke becomes friends with Han and Leia, like that kind of just happens, like. But I mean, he did like rescue her, and they went through a whole little thing together. But
And I don't want to be a Star Wars hater at all, because I'm
Please.
not. I like the movie, but also like the more I think about it, also Luke and Obi-Wan Kenobi, they seem to have had a previously established relationship that we don't like know too much about. Then like once he's like, okay, like you're gonna learn about the Force and everything. They're in like that scene in the ship for a little bit, and then they start their mission, and kind of they immediately lose Obi-Wan Kenobi. Then Obi dies, and it's like, I don't know. It's supposed to be a little more emotionally resonant, I think, but I was confused there, honestly, first of all, because I didn't know Jedis just like disappeared.
Yeah, that's very fair.
But also, it's like, I don't know if that was a emotionally earned moment from the movie, if they were trying to do that. I don't know what they were trying to do.
I mean, that's very valid, and yeah, I mean, it doesn't like genuinely like make me upset or anything emotionally to see Obi-Wan die and like Luke's reaction to it and everything.
Yeah, plus when we mentioned it, but when Princess Leia watched her whole planet get blown up.
Like,
right before that.
Yeah. And then she has to put the jacket over Luke's shoulders and be like, "It's okay."
Yeah.
Oh man, I can't believe he's gone.
One life, huh?
You know, I won't spoil much, but Luke did at least like know of Ben Kenobi like previously.
Yeah.
So they had like met each other before.
But we didn't know that.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess we know that. We don't know the extent of that relationship.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. So like, but yeah, he doesn't really know him at all before he meets him in the Junlin Wastes. You know, if I were to like justify it, which I will, that
you have to. You're a fan.
Yeah. Luke, this is like the guy who has been the reason why he left home. So much new information, a whole new like world. As you've taken your first step into a larger world, as Obi-Wan says. You know, he knew his dad, who he's been like dying to know information about his whole life. Who Uncle Owen's always like, I don't want to talk about your dad. He was a spice shipping pilot or whatever.
Yeah.
You know, so like all these lies and stuff that's been withheld from Luke his whole life. Finally, he's got the gateway to that, and then so quickly before he could even really learn anything or learn how to be a Jedi, he's gone. And that now he's by himself, and he doesn't have a someone to guide him through all this new stuff anymore.
Yeah, I do see that. He is like kind of like his mentor to the rest of the universe or galaxy, I guess. So that does make sense. But also with his with the dad thing, why couldn't he have asked Obi-Wan before?
Well, I mean, you know, this is also stuff that's like established after the fact, but I think it's implied enough in this movie that it's not spoilery. Uncle Owen like doesn't want Obi-Wan to interact with Luke, and he's like, "Oh, that crazy old hermit is crazy." Obi-Wan has interacted with Luke super sporadically, so I don't, and I think it's because like Owen has been like, "Stay away. Don't come here and talk to Luke and introduce him to all this stuff because I want to just keep him safe and not have him go off and get himself killed."
And in which movie does Uncle Owen come back?
Well, did you see his skeleton when the house was exploded?
I did, yeah. But I also saw Obi-Wan Kenobi disappear into nothingness. And
Yeah.
I assume he's coming back.
Well, there are prequels too, you know.
Yeah.
So.
Is the uncle in the prequels?
Yes.
Let's go! Yeah, all right.
He is.
He was just the character who like I most felt drawn to, you know.
Yeah,
most
yeah.
like me.
Just like a hard ass, like doesn't want to let your adopted son follow his dreams.
That's like kind of how I approach all relationships. Like I want to keep them close and not let them sort of explore and find themselves.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah,
I think that's healthy. Well, we talked about the acting.
But okay, wait. Can you tell me? Do people say this movie is well acted?
I think that most people would agree with you that like Luke. A lot of people would like critique Mark Hamill's acting in this one, and I agree with you that especially in the moments where he's supposed to be like genuinely upset and stuff, that's like a little corny and some. But I think like a lot of the annoying stuff is on purpose. Like
I like that stuff.
Okay,
but
yeah.
And I want to be clear that I don't think that's not like the problem of circling. It's genuine line readings, I think. Like
Sure.
Yeah.
No, that's very fair. Like when they're in the cantina and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not such a bad pilot myself. We don't have to listen to this. Come on." I mean, I love it. I love the way he says that, but I hear you. I think people do think that Harrison Ford does a really good job in this movie.
Oh, no.
And I think so too. And Alec Guinness too as Obi-Wan.
Well, I'll say Obi-Wan I think does the best acting job, in my opinion.
Me too.
And then like Han Solo. But I feel like there's a bigger jump there.
I mean, that is very fair. I mean, Alec Guinness is like a Shakespeare classically trained guy. And I think James Earl Jones, even though he's just voice acting, does a pretty good job as well. And Peter Cushing is good as Tarkin, I think. Even though he doesn't really have to show any emotions other than be like,
Who's Tarkin?
The guy who is like, we will pursue another form of persuasion.
Oh, God.
Who, like, seems to be, like, the guy in charge of the Death Star, pretty much.
Yeah.
And then Anthony Daniels as C-3PO. I think he's pretty good.
Brilliant. Honestly, my favorite character also.
Really? Yeah,
of the first movie. Like
he's really funny, I think.
Very funny, yeah. Honestly, like, they sort of set him up as, like, the character to walk you through Star Wars a little bit in this movie. So I was like, yeah, I like him a lot. I did not think I'd care for him at all, like, just based on his design and what I knew about him. Same with R2-D2. I just like didn't think they'd have as much personality as they have. But yeah, they were great.
They've also become like diluted and annoying. Like when I think about C-3PO in general and like the whole Star Wars ethos, like he's annoying to me. But in this movie, and even in the next one too, like he's great, I think, and really like genuinely funny. And his relationship with R2-D2 is awesome too.
I thought they were very sweet too.
Yeah, it's funny. Like they establish really well, like, oh, they fight all the time, but they love each other at the end of the day. They're worried about each other.
The drama in the beginning when like they're going to go separate ways is so great too.
It's awesome. Yeah, the acting is spotty, but I think, at least I think, that there could be way worse than Mark Hamill in that Luke role, which is not necessarily like a good defense for it, but I think that like this movie is potentially so corny and stupid.
Mm-hmm.
And like some things about it are corny and silly, but like there's these elements that like elevate it, and I think that the acting is one of them, in my opinion, to where like, yeah, Mark Hamill has some rough moments in this one, but like still his back and forth with Han Solo, the way that I at the end of the day like believe that he lives in this world and he's not like an American in the 70s. Like, and obviously him and Han Solo specifically are acting pretty like modern, like dudes. That could maybe take you out of it a little bit, but like, again, that's the thing I'm saying about watching it when you're so little and you just accept everything. Like, I'm sure that's coloring my opinion of like, of course, Luke lives in Star Wars, and this is how he
Yeah.
talks. But I just think that in like slightly cornier dialogue, slightly worse acting, like the whole thing could fully fucking fall apart and be like unwatchable.
That's pretty interesting to me because I almost feel like the movie, and I guess there's no way to know really, but I feel like it could work in spite of like acting mishaps or bad acting. Not that like it's overall bad acted, but it's like it just feels like it's definitely much more like a spectacle movie. Maybe I was on board with my amusement park thing in the beginning. It does feel like a ride a little bit, the whole movie.
Yeah,
And I don't know. Maybe there is like I feel like I didn't get too much like meat though of Star Wars stuff to actually like bite into. Like this felt like a sampler almost of like this is the sampler of the Star Wars universe. I know there's more stuff. I know there's deeper lore. I know like there's established like hierarchical systems and whatnot, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting to hear that perspective, and I can totally see what you're saying. Like, and yeah, with the content that you're given in this movie, the characters are somewhat thin, like on paper especially. I mean, I feel like I know the characters so well that it's like they're still acting in character, so it's not like taking me out of it, but
Yeah.
like, yeah, like I guess they do stuff. They don't say that much, but they kind of like, you're like, okay, like Princess Leia's brave because she's like taking charge of this rebellion, and then like when they're rescuing her, like she kind of is like, you idiots, I'm gonna like do this myself.
Yeah. Pretty woke moment, by the way.
Yeah, so actually it's like kind of a feminist movie, and,
yeah.
even though there's only one girl in the whole movie.
It was funny seeing that because I mean maybe people would, maybe I'm not being charitable, but I was like, I feel like people would complain if something was written like that today, and people do complain when things are written like that today.
Yeah,
I guess it just like permeates. I don't know.
I think when, I don't want to speak for like ladies or anything, but I think my at least general understanding is like when it came out, girls who are a fan of it were really excited about Princess Leia because she very, I think intentionally, like isn't like your classic like damsel in distress or whatever, and she does like shoot a gun and get herself out of a lot of the situations. I mean, at the end of the day, they do have to like come rescue her and stuff from the prison cell, but she's like in charge and leading this whole operation and stuff. So I think people like that about her, that she has like a good bit of agency in the movie, even if she is like the princess that they're rescuing. They kind of like flip that trope a little bit.
Yeah, I do wish we got like some more moments with her where she got to let us know like things from her perspective a little bit, because like at least from what and maybe again I like have only seen it once, so could definitely probably rewatch it and find new things. But the moments I like mainly recall from her are like Vader and those guys threatening her, which like wasn't much of a conversation really. It was just more like, what did they do at the one point with that droid, by the way, that had like a little needle?
Yeah.
Like, what is the implication?
Mind probe. They were trying to, get her to say like where the base was, and that droid is just like a torture droid that like injects you with, I'm pretty sure, this serum that messes with your brain and kind of has like a little bit of like a drunk effect or whatever, where you would be more likely to like spill secrets if you were being like tortured physically or whatever. It
Gotcha.
like lowers your inhibitions. So then they do that, and they like hurt you and ask you questions, so you'll be like more likely to. But she was so strong-willed that it didn't work on her.
Yeah, I guess I understand why they didn't show that, if it was just like torture.
Yeah.
But I was wondering, I was like, oh, why'd they pull away from that? Almost like in the beginning of Halloween when like the camera pulls away, and it's like, oh my god, it was a child that just killed all those people. Like the camera's so horrified. I almost got that same like type of shot from this moment, and I was like, oh, they must be like torturing her pretty bad then. But then like she did not look affected the next time I saw her, so I was a little confused.
Physically not affected at all. Yeah, and she seemed to still be pretty like mentally all there.
Yeah,
which I could chalk up to like she's really strong-willed and stuff. But like probably you would have like some kind of feeling about it if you'd just been like physically tortured.
Yeah, I just would have liked to hear like her thoughts on being a prisoner there and like how long she was there for and like I don't know what she thought was going to. I mean, she knew she was going to be terminated that day, or
I think. I mean, and she's like ready to die to you know, protect the rebel base and stuff because they're like, this will. Before your execution, a ceremony. And she's like, yeah, bring on the execution. I don't give a fuck. I stand with the rebels and I'll protect them at all costs. Like, I don't know. Like, she cared about the rebellion more than her planet blowing up. Because, like, when they get to Yavin 4, the moon circling Yavin.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't born yesterday.
Okay. They're like, oh, so sorry about your family and planet and all that. She's like, no time. We gotta get the plans up and figure out what's going on with the plans.
She literally does say, no time for sorrow.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, okay, I guess that makes sense.
And I think that's, like, who she is. Like, she's walled herself off emotionally. And, like, yeah, it would be great to get a little more of that, like, actually in the movie. I think it's implied in certain ways, but it doesn't focus on it enough.
Yeah, maybe that's a thing. Like the movie does introduce like a ton of characters, so you don't get to spend like too much time being like, this is this one character's thing. Like we're gonna learn all about them. Yeah. It's more just like little pieces. Maybe that's part of the joy in watching all the Star Wars, putting it all together. In retrospect, I don't know.
Yeah, I would say the second one, especially in my opinion. I mean, I don't want to say too much of my opinion before we watch it, but definitely is more character focused, slower paced, gives you how people are feeling a lot more than this one. It feels like more mature in the sense of they feel more like real people, like going through relatable situation. Like,
so when did this one come out?
77.
And then the second one came out then
in 80.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And when did the third one come out?
83.
Okay, so they had like a nice little Star Wars run here.
Yeah. And then the prequels all were 3 years apart too. 99, 2002, and 2005.
And I'm curious, so of these, the first three, what is like the fan consensus on what is the best of them? I feel like it can't be this first one, right?
Most people would say that the second one is better.
Okay.
I think. I mean, I know a lot of people who like this one the best just because it's like so fresh, introducing all these new ideas, like so just original. I mean,
yeah.
I will stand by that it's original. I think a lot of like certain types of people would be like, actually, he ripped it all off from samurai movies and all this stuff. And like, yeah, there's a lot of influence from other things, but it still has so many original ideas in it that part I think I love, like the creativity of it, and I think that's like what people who would say this one's the best one that I think would be their reasoning just because of all the new ideas. The second one, I think most people would say, like, in terms of movie making and, like, story and writing and everything is better. And I think so, personally.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, obviously I don't know, I haven't seen the other ones, but this feels like something where, because based on the first one that I watched, I don't necessarily understand, like, the big cultural phenomenon around it. Again, obviously, like, probably part of it was there was nothing else like it at the time, and I'm, like, spoiled enough that there's like a million things that are like have spiraled off of even like the genres and subgenres of this. But it feels like something where it's like once you've got like the basics out of the way, and it may be able to like hit its stride very well.
Yeah,
and like that's why I was guessing like the second would probably be considered the best.
It I think by most people is
Plus, you know, Yoda. Put a little Yoda in there. Box office numbers going through the...
Oh, yeah.
This guy.
I'm excited for you to meet Yoda. He's so good.
Meet Yoda, I will.
Oh, there you go. So you already know a little something about him.
Yeah, well, he's green.
Yeah.
And he's a Jedi. I know that.
Hey, there, you already know too much.
Yeah. Well, it's his whole deal, actually.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, there's an interesting thing about that too, where I'll save it for the next one.
And I am definitely like, obviously because we're talking about it, like thinking way more critically about it than I normally would.
But hey, it's good to think critically about it.
Yeah. But I mean, like I enjoyed it overall. Like I thought it was a fun, good time. And I would watch another Star Wars. Yeah.
That's good to hear. I'm glad to hear that, because there was a potential that you would just be like, this is so dumb and stupid.
I will say, I am surprised. I did think I would find it more appealing than I did.
Really?
I thought it would be like, kind of like, oh, where's this been my whole life?
Yeah.
Jaw-dropping. And it hasn't, this first one didn't necessarily put me there yet. But I feel like I could still get there.
Yeah, I would say, I don't want to overhype it too much, but I would say the second one has potential to do that. Okay. I mean, as an adult, like watching them, I'm like a pretty mature adult. Watching them from a perspective where I try to like remove my nostalgia about them and everything, the second one, in my opinion, is like, this is fucking crazy. Like, awesome stuff. So...
Well, it's
but I don't want to overhype it.
Hard to top the Death Star exploding. I mean, that was pretty cool.
That was great.
And the planet, like, it being used as them actually showing a planet be destroyed with it is awesome.
Yeah.
You almost think they wouldn't deliver on that promise, because it's kind of nuts.
Yeah. I mean, and it feels almost downplayed by the way that people react to it.
Yeah.
But, like, if you think, like, Obi-Wan, has, like, this visceral physical reaction through the Force of, like, oh, I just heard a million voices crying
So
out.
cool, by the way. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I love stuff like that.
He's so connected with the universe that he felt the pain of all those deaths.
Oh, I did want to mention, you know what it weirdly reminded me of? And I don't know if you've seen this or not, or if you've read it, maybe. The Shining by Stephen King.
Yeah.
But have you read or seen Dr. Sleep?
I did not see the movie, but I did listen to the audiobook like 7 years ago or so.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Well, just their aspect of like, and I don't know how it is in the book, but like the second movie expanded upon like what the Shine actually is, which I assume the book does as well.
It
like,
does.
That traveling group of like, basically, they're like psionic vampires or something.
Yeah.
With Rose the Hat and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But there's like, that reminded me, one, of that movie, where there's a moment in it where like the young girl senses that those people just killed a child to like suck up his steam or whatever it's called. And she like freaks out in her bed. And that reminded me of him feeling Obi-Wan. Or no, wait. I feel like I'm mixing up all the names now.
No, it's Obi-Wan.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Him feeling Obi-Wan. And it also reminded me of literally like in X-Men 97 when Charles Xavier feels Gambit's death. And he also sort of gets like the telepathic reverb. I really like the idea of being connected to things in a non-tangible way like that. Like, it's just something that's like very personally interesting to me. I love when it shows up in media, so I was like, oh, that's why I'm like
twin telepathy.
I'm on board with the Force. Whatever the Force is just cool as hell to me right now.
I love the way the Force is explained and used in this one and the next one too, but like, yeah, it's become such like a superpower, like video gamified thing where like, yes, Vader does like choke someone with it. He does the mind tricks and stuff in this one, but it's pretty subtle. It's pretty like I think they do a good job of making it feel like just sort of this ethereal energy force that like they don't really fully understand how it works. And he's like, so it controls your actions? Yes, sometimes, but also you can influence it to your will and stuff. Like, it's really cool.
It's pretty cool. I like it a lot.
Yeah. I like that it's so like subdued with, like, you would think, I mean, it would have to be even faster paced to like earn a moment like this. And Luke does have his big heroic moment of blowing up the Death Star, but he doesn't do anything with a lightsaber in this one, which I think is interesting. He trains with it.
That is really fun. I wasn't even thinking about it too.
But yeah, like once once they get off the Millennium Falcon, he like never uses the lightsaber again, and I think that's cool, like restraint on that.
And I hope it's not. I hope this is an unpopular opinion to say, but the one lightsaber battle that we really do get in the movie, I feel like it's not the coolest lightsaber battle.
No,
It's sort of just like
it's an old man though.
yeah,
He's swinging it around.
Kind of just rubbing their sabers against each other. This is what it looks like in that scene.
The justification and defense I will give to that is, yes, one, Alec Guinness is like pretty old when he's doing this, so he's just kind of doing it back and forth. Vader, on the other hand, it doesn't communicate it as well as it could and will in the future, but he's kind of so powerful and good at fighting with the lightsaber that he's just like blocking and then like taking his shots. Like, he doesn't have to do anything fancy. And then also it's supposed to be like samurai stuff where they just kind of like talking and having a showdown, and then like it's like one big move.
Interesting.
But
okay, I see.
I understand what you're saying. It looks a little goofy for sure.
I don't know why I had like expectations of insane lightsaber battles. I don't know if we get those later on. I don't know if that ever happens in Star Wars, but I was like, there's going to be some pretty nutty lightsaber work here. I thought people would be doing flips and stuff with them.
The lightsaber fights do get crazy.
Okay.
So, yeah.
All right.
We'll talk about it more when we get there. I won't share my opinions about all that right now. But I am opinionated about it, so.
Okay.
Yeah, but I think it's sweet. Like, obviously it's impossible to have, like, like what a lightsaber looks like, and like that Darth Vader has a red lightsaber. But I think that's kind of sweet the way they reveal it in the movie, where like, oh, we've seen Luke's lightsaber. Obi-Wan, we know, has a blue lightsaber from the cantina. Like, lightsabers are blue. Like, okay. Obviously we know now, like, oh yeah, good guys have the blue lightsabers and bad guys have the red ones. But like, when they just cut and like switch to Darth Vader and he's just standing there like holding the red lightsaber out, like, that's the first time anyone would have seen the red lightsaber. I think it's a pretty dope way to reveal it.
Yeah, honestly, that is cool. And like I said, Vader has like some pretty cool shots and moments in here. I feel like he's been done a cultural disservice. I don't know why I've got this spot in my heart for Vader, and I feel like he's misunderstood.
I'm happy to hear that. I think he is a little misunderstood, and I think that they do a great job of expanding on his character in the following movies.
And I think I know he gets prequel expansion too, right?
Yes, yeah.
Because I think I know his name, actually.
Yeah. I mean, probably.
Anakin?
Yes, that is him. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's Skywalker. He's Luke's dad. I mean, that stuff is known. But I think they even say the name Anakin Skywalker in this movie.
Oh, do they?
Definitely in the next one. But
well, I haven't seen that one yet.
I know. I could be wrong. Oh yeah, little other just thoughts that I had. This is like first time I've really thought about this. The way they shoot around the land speeder, I think is pretty cool. Luke's like hovering craft that he pilots.
That's the one he has to sell before they get off the plane. Okay.
Yeah. I think it looks awesome. The design of it is great. But I think it's cool. I was really paying attention to like how they frame shots that it's in. It's always like touching like one thing in the frame, but sometimes when it's not touching anything, like the back of it isn't in the shot. So it's like, oh, they probably had like a stand there holding it up in the air behind the camera. But I think like that's something that we'll really see become a problem in not in the these sequels, but in like the prequels and the future stuff, where like limitations on stuff like that can be a really good thing when it comes to like movie making and shot composition and stuff. Because like the shot where it's like the land speeder poking in and then Obi-Wan's house and like Luke over here and the droids, it's like that looks awesome. That's like a painting snapshot and things. where when you can like literally create full like CGI environments and everything, that kind of stuff really gets pretty much completely lost. And like when they show the land speeder actually moving, they show it going like this, like in a circle, and it's on just like this circle track, but they just can shoot it in a way where it's like it's coming around the corner and then it stops. And it's like, oh, okay.
Is there like a ton of behind the scenes footage for like the first Star Wars
A
movie?
good bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. I'm curious like how much people know about. I guess Star Wars is so big, people probably know everything, but about like the practical effects and everything that were utilized for the movie.
Yeah, there's a documentary that came out like pretty soon after this one came out that I think we should watch. It's like a 30-minute like TV special about it if you want to.
Is it from the time? Like, is it?
Yeah,
from...
yeah.
Oh
yeah.
my god, yeah, that'd be so cool.
There's a like a 2006 documentary that is mostly also about the making of the first movie. That's really good, but I think it would be cool to see like how they talked about it when it was new.
Yeah, I almost want to see like I probably will go watch some. I want to see clips of the news at the time, like the news reacting to this movie, and like maybe like on the street interviews if any of those exist of people like just coming out of the theater.
I think they do. I think that exists
because it is hard to like. It's hard to wrap your head around like a movie being like so different and like blowing everyone away. I feel like I cannot think of a movie in our lifetime that has like sort of captured that same feeling.
No, I mean there's nothing in movies specifically that I would say has ever been like as big as Star Wars, like as a unit of thing. You know? Obviously, like you have like Marvel stuff and Harry Potter or whatever, but that comes from extremely popular source material and stuff that like this technically there was like a novelization of the script released like a few months before the movie came out, but like nobody knew about that, and it was like supposed to be exactly what happens in the movie, like a novelization of the movie.
Why was that released? Just because, just like as like
a
little
feeler or something maybe. I honestly I was curious about that as well. Like, why would they do that?
Well, because I know they will do stuff like that today with big franchises like that. That is basically usually just like a recap. Like like Marvel will do it. They'll be like, okay, the Iron Man movie's coming, so here's like the Iron Man MCU comic, which basically just like tells the same story or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm not like that familiar with the practice of like how they would do that kind of thing with like movies in general back in the 70s and stuff. Like maybe that was common then in general. I don't know, but I do think that's weird that they would release that before them. I mean, it was released like while the movie's like being edited and stuff, so it's all done and everything. So it's not like it comes from that book, but it's I mean, I guess a select few people who would have randomly picked up that book would have known the whole story before the movie came
So we
out.
should have started there.
Yeah, actually. If we were really going to be... I figured we'll introduce it in the way that most people were introduced to it.
It is nuts, though, to think that there was like probably someone who picked up the Star Wars book first and was like, okay... I really like this, and then they saw there's a movie coming out, and we're like, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna go see the movie."
Yeah,
it was pretty exciting.
I know. I mean, there have to be at least a few people who bought the book without like knowing anything.
It must have been surreal for them too.
Yeah, that it just blew up into like the biggest thing ever. Like, what the fuck? This science fiction paperback novel that's just on the shelf with 1,000 other like pulpy sci-fi novels. I mean, that's the thing. It like takes all of those aesthetics of like adventure books and serials and comic books and sci-fi things and like packages them into this high quality, at least I think, like product that can be accessible for the wide audience, but also is like visually represented on a scale and in a more realistic way than it ever had been like envisioned before, I think, so that I think is probably why it's such a part of why it's such a big deal.
Can I ask you who your favorite character in this first movie is?
Yeah, it's a good question. Probably Biggs Darklighter, the guy who gets killed last in the trench run. Um, Probably Obi-Wan, honestly.
Yeah, he's
Um,
pretty cool. Yeah,
I mean, I really like Obi-Wan, Han Solo, Darth Vader, R2 and C3PO. I like all of them a lot, but Obi-Wan is your connector to the lore and like the deeper mythos and everything. But I think those lines are delivered so well, even if they are like clunky exposition lines, that you're like, man, this guy is just like a genius. And
I was literally thinking when watching just him be that role. First, I was like, I wonder where like the first ideas of like, okay, we've got this almost trope of like their wise old man, like it's the wise old man trope.
yeah,
I wonder where that comes from, just sort of in general. Like, is it just something like intuitive that comes with us seeing ourselves in the future, like as an older, wiser versions of ourselves? But because of that, I was like, oh my god, like I totally see that he would be a character that like tons of young boys would be like, oh my god, like that guy's so cool. Like he
yeah,
represents like all the coolest stuff of the Star Wars universe that I've been introduced to.
yeah.
So I could see him being like really, really popular, which again makes it like it's weird to me that I like don't know him or anything about him as much.
I feel like, yeah, he's like not one of the main three human characters, I guess. And also like he's not like a design, like I think a lot of the iconography, like Yoda, Darth Vader, the droids and stuff, is because they're not just like regular people, like, or whatever, like
Yeah,
Obi-Wan's just a guy.
even Chewbacca. Like I
Yeah,
say,
yeah,
I knew better, and Chewbacca is, I think, not even arguably way less important in the movie than
yeah, he doesn't do that much,
yeah.
really. Yeah, yeah, but he's like a design, like a creature. So I think that's why, Obi-Wan's not on like people's back window of their car and stuff as much. But yeah, like he looms large in my mind, and in a lot of people's. I don't think I'm alone in that.
And if he doesn't come back, I'm curious if we just will always hear his voice now in times of need. Like, I don't know. We'll have to see.
We'll have to see.
My prediction is
cool,
yes. We're gonna hear some more from Obi-Wan. That's my official prediction.
Okay. Well, we'll note it for the record, and we'll
Yeah.
see if that comes true.
And they may even get like a thing. Again, this is sort of like in Doctor Sleep, The Shining as well, because I forget the person who like originally ran the Overlook Hotel, but that guy ends up just like a ghost friend, whatever ghost spiritual soul thing that Danny can see and talk to.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right. Any closing thoughts or opinions that you had about the movie, or any tidbits that stuck out, or weird specifics or anything? It's really genuinely very interesting to hear, like, what I mean, as somebody who cares about it a lot. I want to know like your thoughts about like every line and minute of it, but we don't need to do all of that. But if there's anything else that you want to talk about, I'd love to hear it.
I mentioned I like the Death Star a lot. I thought the Death Star concept is really cool. I almost was sad to see it go.
Yeah.
And I hope that it is around in the prequels, at least. Like, I hope there's like nerdy stuff where it's like, we have to like get this material because it's eventually going to be used to build the Death Star or something like that. You're smiling, so I feel like maybe there's something like that
A little
that comes
bit,
up.
yeah.
But just like little things like that about it, because I don't want to be like completely done with Death Star yet. Maybe there's much cooler stuff in the Star Wars universe for me to cling on to, but I really like the concept of that like giant, just planet destroying ship.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just super, super cool.
I wish they almost maybe did a better job of this. One thing I was gonna say, wouldn't it be cool if the first time they show the Death Star is when Han and Obi-Wan and Luke are coming up to it? Because I get that with the pacing of the movie, that wouldn't really like make sense, and we want stuff with Leia and Alderaan to have been blown up before they get there and all that. But I think that reveal is really cool, the way they talk about it, where the TIE fighter flies over the ship, and they're like, that's a short-range fighter, like, oh, what's it doing out here? Oh, it must have gotten lost as part of a convoy. And they're like, yeah, there's no space stations out here that are close enough for it to, like, dock to. And then they like, okay, we're coming up on the big moon. And then Obi-Wan is like, that's no moon. And then they're like, that's too big to be a battle station. I mean, all that stuff, like, really hypes it up as, like, even to these characters, this is crazy. Like, nothing like this has ever been around, at least to their knowledge.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say on that, though, I do wish the explosion of it, I don't know, maybe I'm a Michael Bay head all of a sudden. I wish I got to see the explosion a little more. I feel like it explodes and then they quickly cut away.
Yeah,
I assume that's like for effects reasons. They were like, we don't need to like
probably
showcase that.
I would assume it started looking weird after the point that they cut it or something.
Yeah, well, because obviously the Death Star exploding is like one thing I did know about because that gets referenced like in so many things.
Yeah.
I didn't know it was in the first Star Wars movie, to be honest. Like I didn't know that it was about the Death Star.
Yeah, that's like the big main, like at least plot in this one is like, the plans for the Death Star and then blowing it up.
Well, you heard that when I read my thing. Clearly, I had no idea like what the actual plot of the movie was going to be. Like what thing they were going to be trying to accomplish.
Yeah.
Just making friends with Emperor Palpatine and his daughter Leia.
Hey, well, you never know. I mean, that could be... It's not all part of it, but there's some things like that.
Yeah, okay, all right. So
yeah,
I can write a better prediction for the second one, though, honestly.
I would love to know what you think will happen in a sequel.
Stuff. And probably, by the time we got to a third one, I'm like, oh, I speak Star Wars now, baby. Mm-hmm. I know the language. I know in and out what they're going to do.
Yeah.
And just completely write the synopsis before even watching the movie.
I really... think that's a good idea, and you should do it for the prequels too. If we get there, that would be really funny. Yeah, I bet you could have some probably good guesses for what's coming. Oh yeah, very minor thing, but I love in the Death Star explosion right before it, where they're cutting to like the guys preparing the laser again, and then they have the one last shot of Grand Moff Tarkin just being like, like I'm playing, and then it explodes.
Yeah.
And it's like he just was so like confident until his final moment. I had no idea.
So everyone on the Death Star is dead.
Yeah.
Like that's final.
Yeah.
That's pretty nuts.
He killed all those people.
Wow.
Yeah, and they probably had some prisoners on there too.
Yeah, that's true. They did have a person on there. I guess they were like, well, they took sort of like a utilitarian approach and were like, the greater good here.
I guess they were literally like in the process of firing the laser that would have destroyed a whole planet.
Truly a trolley problem.
Yeah, sort of something that like people like Mr. Fantastic and Iron Man and Black Panther and Namor might run into a problem like that, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what it was reminding me of, though, when they fight the like Justice League analog people on the one incursion thing in Hickman New Avengers.
Oh, yeah. I know you're talking about.
And then everybody's like, no, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So cool.
God, I love incursion stuff. What's really funny to me is like stuff also that became like super well known. Like these aren't the droids you're looking for.
Yeah.
For me in the movie, like that moment happens so quickly. It's just like there and gone. But it's like, my ears sort of like were more alert at that time because I know that's like a well-known, beloved moment. So I was like, so is more gonna happen here? Like I almost like expect like those moments to be battles for some reason.
Yeah.
Okay.
Like this is the big line right before a big fight happens. Yeah. No, I know what you mean. And my brain is so broken to where there's been so many like references to specific lines in other Star Wars media where like the names of levels of video games will be like your first step into a larger world, or like she might not look like much but she's got it where it counts, and then even Obi-Wan when they're at the table, he's like, we'd like to avoid any Imperial entanglements. Imperial entanglements is the title of a wave of figures in the Star Wars miniatures like tabletop game. It's called
God.
Imperial Entanglements, and I'm like, oh, that's where they got that from. Okay. Yeah, so there's just a million things like that.
I also feel like it's going to be interesting when we talk about like merchandise and marketing stuff, because I feel like probably every aspect of this movie at this point has been merchandised to hell. Like,
oh yeah. Well, that's a good transition to talking about, I think, what we want to do in the next episode and the future of the podcast. We're not going to like literally cover all Star Wars media because there's just so much books, hundreds of novels that we would have to read. So I think that would be insane.
Yeah.
But I would like to go in as much as kind of is like feasible. So in the next episode, I think we'll probably talk about mostly like the fallout from this movie, which we can talk about. Yeah, the merchandise, the toys, I think are really interesting, and the behind-the-scenes stuff about the toys is pretty interesting. Documentaries and stuff that came out directly afterwards, like you were talking about, people's reactions to it, what the news and like reviewers and general public thought about it at the time, I think is really fascinating.
Ooh, I want to read like bad reviews at the time. I want to look some of those up to see like what critics, people who were very critical of it said.
I mean, I'm sure some people like hated it, and
well,
because it was just a movie. It was just any other movie,
and like pretty different too. So it's like the potential to be polarizing's higher.
And I could see some like serious film critic being like, "This is like baby stuff for kids, and it's just stupid and basic."
The death of cinema as we know it.
Well, I do have some thoughts on that actually, but we're running out of time. I love Star Wars a lot, but I think it has had some pretty negative impacts on like the general movie going experience and stuff.
I can definitely see that. I also I get the sense it's had a lot of like negative impacts that stem from like corporate entanglements.
Yes, there you go.
Instead of Empire? What is it?
Imperial
entanglements.
But yeah, I think we'll talk about in the next episode toys, comics, maybe one book. Even if we don't read the whole book, we can talk about it. And then probably the third episode, we'll do the holiday special and talk about that. That's all for now. Thanks for listening, and tune in next time.
Ditto.